Thorn Valdez trudged through the ankle-deep snow, his breath creating ghost-like puffs in the frigid air. The weight of his supply pack dug into his shoulders, a familiar discomfort after the 12-kilometer hike from the nearest transport station. The Forest Department had offered him a hover sled 3 years ago, but Thorn preferred walking. The solitude of the forest path matched his temperament. 6 weeks of required departmental training had been 5 weeks and 6 days too long. The constant noise of Outpost 7 people talking, machines humming, announcements blaring had worn his patience thin. Thorn had joined the Forestry Service precisely because it promised isolation. It's not community-building exercises and sensitivity training. His cabin appeared through the trees, a simple structure of reclaimed wood and reinforced polymer that blended. With the ancient pines surrounding it, something felt off immediately. Thorn slowed his approach, eyes narrowing as he noted the lack of snow accumulation near his front door. Someone had cleared it recently. The security panel next to his door showed green "no breaches detected," but Thorn knew better than to trust technology implicitly. He set down his pack quietly and unholstered his standard-issue tranquilizer pistol. The Forestry Department insisted rangers carry non-lethal weapons to handle wildlife encounters. Thorn had modified his to increase both range and potency. System. Silent entry protocol, he whispered. The door unlocked with a barely audible click. Thorn eased it open, immediately noticing the cabin's interior temperature warm. Not the cool hibernation setting he'd programmed before leaving. The scent hit him next, unfamiliar, like ozone and wildflowers. A soft scraping sound came from his small kitchen area. Thorn moved silently across the main room, his boots making no sound on the wooden flora, skill developed through years of tracking wildlife. The woman standing at his counter had her back to him. She wore his spare thermal shirt, the sleeves rolled up multiple times to accommodate her slender arms. Her hair fell in cascades of silver blue, catching the light strangely, almost seeming to glow from within. She was attempting to operate his ancient coffee synthesizer, pressing buttons in a sequence that would never produce anything drinkable. "That's not how it works," Thorn said. Keeping his voice level and his tranquilizer raised, she spun around, knocking the synthesizer to the floor with a clatter. Her eyes widened, received a deep violet that seemed to swirl with tiny flecks of light. Her features were delicate, almost impossibly symmetrical, with high cheekbones and a slight bluish tint to her skin. Not human, or at least, not entirely. "Me no harm," she said, her voice melodic, with an accent he couldn't place. "Your dwelling was the only shelter within safe parameters." Thorn kept the tranquilizer steady. "My security system is military grade." "How did you get in?" "Your security system has several exploitable weaknesses." She remained perfectly still, those strange violet eyes assessing him. "I would have left before your return, but the atmospheric disturbance made travel impossible." "Snowstorm," Thorn translated, glancing toward the window where heavy flakes were now falling in earnest. "It's supposed to last 3 days. Then I request temporary asylum. I can compensate you with knowledge. Or skills." Thorn finally lowered his weapon. Whatever she was, she didn't seem dangerous, just desperate. And something about her intrigued him in a way he hadn't felt in years. "You can start by explaining who you are and why you're wearing my clothes." "My name is Nix," she said. "My own attire was damaged during my ... arrival. I found these garments in a storage unit." She gestured to the shirt and the thermal pants cinched tight around her waist with what appeared to be wire from his repair kit. "Your arrival?" Thorn moved to retrieve the fallen synthesizer. "You mean when you crashed whatever ship you came?" In surprise flickered across her face. "You are more perceptive than expected. I track animals for a living. I noticed the broken trees and disturbed earth in the East Valley 3 days ago." He set the synthesizer on the counter and pressed a single button. It hummed to life. "This thing only has one working button. The rest are for show." Nix watched with curious interest as the machine produced a steaming cup of synthetic coffee. "Your technology is ... peculiar," says the woman who broke into my cabin. Thorn poured a second cup and offered it to her. "So what are you running from?" Her posture stiffened. "What makes you believe I am fleeing?" No one crashes a ship in a restricted forest preserve and breaks into an isolated cabin if they're not hiding from something. He took a sip of the bitter liquid. Or someone. The howling wind outside intensified, rattling the windows.
Thanks.
Gaze darted toward the sound, her body tensing like a cornered animal. They cannot track me in this weather, she murmured, almost to herself. Who's they? Nix turned back to him, seeming to come to a decision. If I tell you, you become involved. That would be unwise for your continued safety. Lady, my safety went out the window when you decided to break into my home. Thorn set down his cup. But I'm not turning you in, at least not until this storm passes, and I hear your story. For the first time, Nix's expression softened slightly. You are unusual for your species. Most humans would have already alerted authorities. I'm not most humans. Thorn gestured toward the small living area. You can sleep on the couch. I'll take first watch. First watch? If someone's hunting you, they might brave the storm. We'll take turns keeping guard. He picked up his supply. Pack now, are you hungry? 'Cause I have 6 weeks of missed meals to make up for, and I'm not eating alone. The ghost of a smile touched Nix's lips. I find I am experiencing hunger. Yes. As Thorn unpacked his supplies, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just become infinitely more complicated, and strangely, he didn't mind at all. The storm howled outside, a natural barricade that Thorn hoped would keep them safe through the night. Nix sat cross-legged on the floor, near the heating unit, examining the components of Thorn's broken communication device with nimble fingers. Your transmitter is functional, but deliberately limited, she observed, turning a circuit board toward the light. Someone has installed a suppression module. Thorn ladled stew into 2 bowls. Forest Service regulations. They claim it's to prevent interference with wildlife tracking systems. They lie. Nix's voice was matter-of-fact. This modification prevents communications beyond your planetary atmosphere. He handed her a bowl, watching as she inhaled the steam with evident curiosity before tasting it. Her eyes widened in apparent pleasure. How did you end up as a forest ranger? She asked, between careful bites. Thorn settled into his chair. 5 years in the Unified Earth Defense Force was enough. Saw too many conflicts that didn't make sense. Followed too many orders I didn't believe in. You were a soldier, it wasn't a question. Combat specialist. Then tactical advisor. He stared into his stew. I requested the most remote posting the Forest Service offered. Been here 3 years now. NYX's violet eyes studied him with new interest. That explains your calm reaction to finding a non-terrestrial in your dwelling. I've seen stranger things. He paused. Though your eyes are definitely in my top 5. Before she could respond, a high-pitched whine cut through the storm's howl. Nix froze, her spoon halfway to her mouth. Seeker drones, she whispered. Thorn was already moving, extinguishing lights and activating the cabin's thermal dampening system, another modification Forest Service didn't know about. How many, 3? She tilted her head, listening. Military grade. They're using a sweep pattern consistent with Celestial Alliance protocols. The whine intensified. Thorn grabbed her arm. Basement. Now. He pulled aside the hand-woven rug in the main room, revealing a trapdoor disguised to match the wooden floor. Nix followed him down narrow stairs into a space that smelled of earth and metal. The basement was small, but well-equipped. Weapon racks. Supply shelves, communications, equipment, more sophisticated than anything upstairs, and a small medical station. Thorn activated a control panel, and the trapdoor sealed above them. You were definitely not just a forest ranger, Nix observed. Let's just say I planned for contingencies. He checked an array of monitors showing the cabin's surroundings. Tell me about these drones. They belong to the Celestial Alliance, a coalition of 17 planetary systems, including Earth. Nix hugged herself, suddenly looking vulnerable. I was a data analyst for their intelligence division until 3 lunar cycles ago. What happened 3 lunar cycles ago? I discovered communications proving the war with the Vanguard Collective is based on falsified attacks. Her voice hardened. Both sides believe they're retaliating against the other, but the initial incidents were engineered by a third party. The whine of the drones grew louder overhead. On the monitors, Thorn could see three sleek, stepped objects hovering near his cabin, their sensors scanning methodically. Who's the third party? A species called the Harvestin. They orchestrate conflicts, then salvage technology and resources. From the devastated worlds, she approached the monitor. Millions have died in a war designed to weaken both sides. I compiled evidence, but before I could present it, my superior attempted to have me eliminated. One of the drones paused directly above the cabin. Thorn held his breath as its scanning beam passed over them. Thermal dampening is holding, he whispered. They'll send ground teams next. Nix's voice was resigned. I've endangered you by staying. What? What you're saying is true. We're all endangered. Thorn checked his weapons locker. How did you end up crashing here? I stole a scout ship with the intention of reaching the Vanguard Collective. My ship was damaged during pursuit. She met his eyes. This region was designated as uninhabited wilderness on all official charts. It is, technically. I'm the only human within 100 kilometers. A new alert flashed on Thorn's monitor's motion sensors that the forest perimeter had been triggered. Ground team, he confirmed. For heat signatures moving in formation. Nix's expression grew solemn. They will not take me alive. The information I carry is too valuable. Thorn made a decision then, one that went against all his training and instincts for self-preservation. Then we make sure they don't find you. He handed her a pulse pistol. You know how to use this? The way she checked the weapon and adjusted its settings answered his question. I have a plan, he said, moving to a storage container and retrieving what looked like specialized hunting gear. But you'll have to trust me. For the first time since he'd found her, Nick smiled a genuine expression that transformed her face and sent an unexpected warmth through Thorn's chest. Trust, she said, is a commodity I thought I had exhausted. Well, Thorn replied, checking the storm patterns on his weather monitor. Let's see if we can restock your supply. Dawn broke with eerie silence, the storm having passed during the night. The forest stood transformed, trees draped in white, the morning sun creating a dazzling display across untouched snow. Thorn surveyed the landscape through binoculars from his cabin's rooftop observation post. They've pulled back to regroup. The false heat signatures worked. Beside him, Nix adjusted the thermal camouflage cape he'd lent her. Your diversionary tactics were impressive. Remote-controlled wildlife decoys. He allowed himself a small smile, designed to lead predators away from endangered species. Never thought I'd use them against Celestial Alliance troops. They had spent the night deploying the decoys, each programmed to mimic human heat signatures moving away from the cabin in different directions. The confusion had bought them time, but Thorn knew it was temporary. We need to reach your ship, he said, collapsing the binoculars. Can you repair it? Some systems? Yes. The propulsion matrix suffered critical damage. She hesitated. The ship's AI might help us transmit my evidence to trustworthy contacts. Thorn had learned to read her. Expressions over the past day, the subtle shifts that revealed more than her controlled words. There's something you're not telling me. Her violet eyes met his. The ship's quantum core is unstable. Approaching it carries significant risk. More risk than being captured by people who want to kill you? Similar risk profile, she admitted. Gathered supplies for the journey, weapons, tools, emergency rations. As Thorn packed, he found himself studying Nix's movements, graceful yet precise, no motion wasted. She had adapted his spare clothes to fit her slender frame, using materials from his sewing kit with ingenious effectiveness. You've been watching me, she observed, without looking up from her task. Thorn didn't deny it. You're unlike anyone I've ever met. I could say the same about you. She secured a tool belt around her waist. Most humans fear difference. I've found most fears are based on ignorance. He shouldered his pack. Ready? He traveled swiftly through the forest, Thorn leading them through paths invisible to untrained eyes. The snow made tracking easier. They could see signs of the search parties that had passed through during the night. They're searching in a radial pattern, Thorn noted, examining boot prints. Standard military procedure. You know their tactics. Well, used to teach them. He helped her across a narrow ravine. The East Valley is 2 kilometers ahead. The ship became visible through the trees, a sleek, oval craft approximately 12 meters long. Its iridescent hull reflected the surrounding forest, a sophisticated camouflage that would have made it nearly invisible from above. Now half buried in snow, it looked like a wounded creature. Nix approached it with obvious concern. The emergency protocols should have maintained better concealment. She pressed her palm against what appeared to be smooth hull. A section dissolved, revealing an entrance. Inside, the ship was dimly lit by pulsing blue emergency lights. The interior was organic and designed curved surfaces with no sharp edges, controls that seemed to grow from the walls themselves. A melodious voice echoed through the chamber. Ship systems are operating at 32% capacity. Quantum core stability at 67% and declining. Low pulse, Nix replied. Status of data package Omega-7, secure and intact. Warning, tracking beacon has been remotely activated. Thorn tensed. They know where the ship is. Not precisely, the AI responded. I have been generating false positioning data, but this countermeasure will fail within 12 hours. Nix moved to what Thorn assumed was the pilot's station, a curved seat surrounded by holographic displays that activated at her approach. Pulse. This is Thorn Valdez. He has provided assistance and sanctuary. Scanning. A beam of light passed over Thorn, human male. Military training. Genetic profile suggests high compatibility with ship systems. Compatibility, Thorn questioned. Nix's expression grew complicated. My species designs our technology to respond to compatible biosignatures. It's rare for humans to register. Before Thorn could ask more questions, the ship trembled. Quantum core fluctuation, Pulse announced. Recommend immediate stabilization. Protocol. Nix moved to a panel that opened at her touch, revealing a crystalline structure pulsing with energy. I need your help, she said to Thorn. The stabilization requires 2 operators with compatible signatures. What do I do? Place your hands here, she indicated 2 depressions in the panel. Focus your thoughts on something constant, a fixed point in your mind. Thorn placed his hands beside hers. Their fingers nearly touched, and he felt an electric current pass between them. Clear your mind, she instructed, her voice softening. Find something unchanging to focus on. He looked at her violet eyes that had haunted his thoughts since. First seeing them, Anne knew immediately what his fixed point would be. The crystals pulsing synchronized with their heartbeats. Energy flowed through Thorn's arms, not painful, but intense, as if every cell in his body had awakened simultaneously. Neural synchronization occurring, Pulse noted. Quantum stability increasing. NYX's eyes widened in surprise. You're remarkably compatible. The moment stretched between them, something unspoken passing in the energy they shared. When the crystal finally stabilized, glowing a steady blue, neither moved immediately to break the connection. Core stabilized at 92%. Pulse announced. Full systems diagnostic initiating. Thorn reluctantly withdrew his hands. That was ... different. Yes, Nix seemed equally affected. Few non-stellarans can achieve such rapid synchronization. Is that what you are, Stellaran? She nodded. It's from a system your astronomers call Kepler 442. As Pulse continued its diagnostics, Nix showed Thorn the evidence she had risked everything to preserve communications, tactical orders, falsified attack reports, all pointing to the harvest and manipulation. Millions dead, Thorn murmured, reviewing the data. For what? Resources, technology, genetic material? Nix's voice hardened. They see other species as commodities to be harvested when they've weakened themselves through conflict. And you are going to bring this to the Vanguard Collective? 2. Show them they've been fighting the wrong enemy. She gazed at the holographic displays. Both sides must unite against the real threat. Thorn found himself standing closer to her than necessary. It's getting dark. We should return to the cabin for tonight and come back tomorrow with more supplies. As they prepared to leave, Pulse spoke again. Analyst Nix, I have detected unusual biological markers in your system. Your proximity to subject Thorn Valdez appears to be triggering hormonal fluctuations consistent with thank you. Pulse, Nyx interrupted, a faint blue tinge coloring her cheeks. Conserve power for essential functions only, Thorn pretended. Not to notice her embarrassment as they exited the ship, but found himself wondering exactly what hormonal fluctuations the AI detected on whether his own system was experiencing similar responses. The trading outpost at the edge of the forest preserve was as close to civilization as Thorn typically ventured. A collection of prefabricated structures and converted shipping containers housed everything from supply stores to a rudimentary medical facility. Today, the outpost represented both necessity and danger. "We need the parts," Thorn explained as they approached on foot, having hidden their hoversled 2 kilometers back. "PULSE's list is specific components we can't fabricate from what I have at the cabin." Nyx pulled the hood of her thermal jacket lower, obscuring her distinctive features. The blue tint of her skin could pass for a cosmetic modification common enough among outpost workers, but her eyes would immediately mark her as non-human. "I've calculated a 93% probability of hostile presence," she said quietly. "That's why we're not separating." Thorn handed her a small device. "Emergency beacon. It's activated if something goes wrong and I'll find you." The marketplace was busy with the usual mix of Forest Service personnel, independent traders, and the occasional off-world visitor. Lauren led them through the crowd with practiced efficiency, heading for a particular shop tucked between larger establishments. The proprietor, a heavy-set woman with cybernetic enhancements visible at her temples, looked up as they entered. Recognition flickered across her features. "Valdez thought you'd gone feral out there." Her eyes shifted to Nyx. "Who's your friend?" "Research assistant," Thorn replied smoothly. "Forest Service finally assigned me help with the Western Quadrant." "Survey, lucky you." The woman seemed unconvinced but didn't press. "What do you need?" Thorn produced a data chip. "Everything on this list, and information." Yeah. The transaction took longer than Thorn wanted, each minute in public increasing their risk of discovery. Finally, the components were packed and ready. "That information," the proprietor said, lowering her voice. "Alliance personnel have been through twice this week, asking questions about unregistered ships, showing pictures of some woman." Nyx tensed beside him. "They're offering rewards." The woman continued. "Big ones. Anything else?" Thorn kept his expression neutral. "They installed scanners at the outpost perimeter yesterday. New ones." She tapped her cybernetic implant. "I can feel them. They're not just checking for weapons." Thorn placed extra. "Credits on the counter. Thanks for the warning, Jana." "Whatever you're mixed up in, Valdez," she replied, pushing half the credits back. "Be careful." Outside, they moved cautiously toward the outpost's edge. The new scanners were visible now, sleek black pylons positioned at regular intervals. "DNA scanners?" Nyx confirmed quietly. "They're searching for my genetic signature. We'll take the long way back," Thorn decided, through the mining tunnels. They were halfway to the tunnel entrance when Nyx suddenly gripped his arm. "We're being followed." 3 individuals, maintaining precise distance. Thorn didn't turn. "Alliance?" "No, local security insignia." Her voice dropped. Someone reported. "Us." They quickened their pace, turning down a narrow alley between storage facilities. The followers matched their speed. "Run or confront?" Thorn asked. "Neither." Nyx pulled him into a shadowed doorway. Before he could question her plan, she pressed against him, her hands framing his face. Public displays of affection make observers uncomfortable. She kissed him. Thorn's surprise lasted only a moment before he responded. One arm circling her waist, the other bracing against the wall. The kiss deepened, becoming something neither of them had planned for. Her skin was warmer than he expected, her lips softer. Time seemed to slow around them. Footsteps approached, then passed by. Their pursuers, apparently uncomfortable with the intimate scene, continued down the alley. They broke apart slowly. Nyx's violet eyes were wide, her breathing uneven. "That was... ... She began. "Tactical," Thorn finished, though they both knew it had become something else entirely. "Yes." She stepped back slightly. "We should continue moving." The mining tunnels were abandoned, used occasionally by smugglers, but mostly forgotten after. The ore deposits were depleted. Thorn led them through the labyrinthine passages by the light of a small lamp. "You knew that woman at the shop?" Nix observed after they had walked in silence for some time. "Jaina, she was UEDF before me." Lost her legs in the Proxima conflict, he navigated around a fallen support beam. "She's one of the few people I trust out here." "You have not asked about my plans," Nix said suddenly. "Once the ship is repaired?" Thorn had been avoiding that particular thought. "Not my business." "Could be." She stopped walking. "Pulse detected compatibility between us that goes beyond the quantum core synchronization." In the dim light, her features seemed both alien and impossibly familiar, as if he'd known her face all his life. "What are you saying?" he asked, though he already knew. "I must complete my mission, deliver the evidence to the Vanguard Collective." She stepped closer, but afterward, "There are options, such as you could come with me." The words hung between them. "Your skills would be valuable. The compatibility we share is ... rare." Before Thorn could respond, a distant rumble echoed through the tunnel. Dust and small rocks showered down from the ceiling. Explosives, he realized. "They're collapsing the entrance." They ran, Thorn leading them through side passages, toward an emergency exit he remembered from old mining maps. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder, boots on stone, voices calling out commands. Alliance troops, Nix confirmed. At least 6. They reached a junction where the tunnel split in 3 directions. Thorn pulled a small device from his pack and activated it. "Sonic disruptor," he explained. "It'll buy us time." "Thorn?" Nix's voice was urgent. "If they capture me, I have fail-safes to protect the data, but... She pressed something into his hand, a small crystalline data core. "This contains everything. Coordinates to my contacts in the Vanguard Collective, authentication codes, the complete evidence package." "I'm not leaving you," he growled. "You might not have a choice." Her eyes held his. "Promise you'll complete the mission if I can't." Another explosion rocked the tunnel, closer this time. Thorn made a decision that went against everything he'd planned for his life of isolation. "We're getting out together," he insisted. "And then we'll talk about those options." The smile she gave him contained a universe of possibility. As they raced toward the exit and whatever future awaited them, Thorn realized that for the first time in years, he was running towards something, not away. The cabin burned against the night sky, flames leaping high above the ancient pines. Thorn watched from the ridge, his expression unreadable. 3 days of preparations, of careful planning, had led to this moment. "It is beautiful in its way," Nix said softly beside him. "Destruction often is." "It was never really home," Thorn replied, though they both knew it wasn't entirely true. Just a place to hide. The Alliance forces had surrounded the cabin at dusk, expecting to find them trapped inside. Instead, they'd found only automated systems and a carefully timed incendiary device and other modification the Forest Service hadn't approved. Pulse reports the ship is at optimal capacity. Nix checked the communicator strapped to her wrist. All systems ready for departure. They made their way through the forest using paths only Thorn knew, avoiding the sensor grids the Alliance had established. The ship waited in its new location, clearing 5 kilometers from its original crash site, carefully concealed with technology Nix had salvaged. "They'll detect our launch," Thorn noted as they approached the vessel. "We'll have minutes at most before they deploy interceptors. PULSE has plotted a course through the asteroid belt. We can mask our signature there before making the jump to the Vanguard border station." She hesitated. "You can still change your mind." Thorn looked back toward the distant glow of his burning cabin, then to the woman beside him, alien yet increasingly familiar. In 3 days, she had transformed from intruder to partner to something he had no name for yet. "Nothing to change," he said simply. The ship welcomed them with soft blue light, systems humming to life as they entered. Thorn had grown accustomed to the organic design, the way the vessel seemed to respond to their presence like a living thing. "Launch sequence initiated," Pulse announced. "Detecting increased communication activity from Celestial Alliance frequencies." They are aware of power signature buildup. Nyx took the pilot's position, hands moving across controls that responded to her touch. Thorn settled into the secondary station, where displays reconfigured to match his preferences. Neural interface established, pulse confirmed, enhancing navigation systems through dual pilot configuration. The synchronization was immediate this time. Thorn could feel Nyx's presence in his mind. Not invasive, but complementary. There. Thoughts aligning through the ship's systems. It was intoxicating, intimate in a way physical touch couldn't match. "Ready?" she asked, though she already knew his answer through their connection. The ship rose silently, cloaking systems engaged. Forest canopy parting above them. Thorn felt the acceleration as they climbed toward the stars, Earth's atmosphere thinning around them. Alliance vessels deploying, pulse warned. Interception course calculated. Time to contact, 3 minutes, 17 seconds. Executing evasive. Pattern Delta Nyx responded, the ship banking sharply. Through their neural connection, Thorn could sense her strategy. He adjusted power distribution without being asked, strengthening shields where they would be needed most. "You're a natural," she said, genuine admiration in her voice. "Good teacher." Monitored the pursuit vessels on his display. They're splitting formation. Trying to box us in. The ship shuddered as energy weapons found their mark, shields absorbing most of the impact. Shield integrity at 83%, Pulse reported, approaching asteroid field perimeter. The vast belt of tumbling rocks appeared before them. Chaotic maze that could provide cover or become their tomb. Nyx guided the ship into the field, weaving between asteroids with impossible precision. Alliance vessels maintaining pursuit, pulse updated. Have sustained damage from asteroid collisions. 3. Continue pursuit. A larger blast rocked the ship, sending warning signals across Thorn's display. Aft shield failing, he reported. Already rerouting power. You can't take another hit like that. Nyx's mind touched his through the interface, sharing a plan too complex for words. Thorn understood immediately, adjusting course to bring them toward a massive asteroid tumbling slowly in the distance. "Are you certain?" Pulse questioned, obviously. Accessing the same plan through their neural link, probability of success is 57%. Sometimes, Thorn said, you have to trust your instincts over your calculations. They accelerated toward the asteroid, the Alliance vessels closing the gap behind them. At the last possible moment, Nyx executed a maneuver that sent them skimming the surface of the massive rock, using its gravity to slingshot them in a new direction, while simultaneously dropping explosive charges from the ship's limited weapon systems. The resulting chain reaction sent fragments of the asteroid hurtling in all directions. 2 pursuit vessels couldn't adjust in time, their shields overwhelmed by the debris. The third veered away, losing their trail in the chaos. Pursuit vessels no longer detected, pulse confirmed. Course to Vanguard border station plotted. Estimated arrival, 14 hours. 22 minutes. The neural interface gentled as immediate danger passed, but didn't disconnect entirely. Thorn could still feel Nyx's presence, her relief, her determination, something deeper that mirrored his own growing feelings. "We did it," he said, unnecessary, but satisfying to voice aloud. "The difficult part comes next." She rose from her station, approaching him, convincing the Vanguard that their enemy isn't their enemy. And then she smiled, that rare expression he'd come to treasure. "And then we have options." Later, as Earth diminished to a blue speck behind them and Pulse maintained their course, they stood together in the observation dome. The neural interface had been disengaged, but something of the connection remained, a resonance between them that defied explanation. "I've spent my life among the stars," Nyx said, watching the cosmos spread before them, "yet I've never truly seen them until now." Thorn understood what she meant. He had spent years in a forest, surrounded by life, yet had been profoundly alone until she crashed into his world. "What happens if we succeed?" he asked. "If both sides believe your evidence, then perhaps there will be peace." She turned to him. "And we will have prevented the harvest of countless worlds and us." The question he'd been avoiding finally emerged. Nyx reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. The sensation of her skin against his sent warmth, through his entire body. In my culture, compatibility like ours is considered rare and precious. Her violet eyes held his. We value it accordingly. My culture, Thorn replied, drawing her closer, were a bit more direct. This time, when they kissed, there was no tactical purpose, no audience to deceive only the honest. Connection between two beings who had found each other across impossible distances. As the ship carried them toward an uncertain future in stars, glittered around them, Thorn realized he had finally found what he hadn't known he was searching for, not solitude, but belonging. In the background, PULSE discreetly dimmed the lights and adjusted the environmental controls for optimal comfort. Its algorithms registering the heightened emotional and physiological responses of its two pilots with what might have been interpreted in a less sophisticated system as satisfaction. The universe, vast and often hostile, suddenly seemed full of possibility, and for two individuals from different worlds, it was enough to begin with.